From the people who help you know your competition, InteliChek presents the Multi-Point Inspection Podcast. The Multi-Point Inspection Podcast brings you news and stories from the automotive world told in an informative and entertaining way. In November of 2021, I bid on a job that was posted on the freelance site Upwork. The job description read in part, quote, "We are looking for someone to create a mock podcast out of a recorded interview meeting. Our team will pull out the audio snippets that should be in response to a host's questions. The host and their questions needs to be recreated and recorded to make it sound like the one host is asking the questions. There were 4 to 5 persons on the interview asking the questions, and we wanted to sound like the questions were asked by one host to our guest, using his real audio responses to the questions." End quote. Now, I was well versed in creating narrative podcasts, usually for various projects that I had started myself. And I was currently doing a similar thing for a company which produced defibrillators, and their podcasts involved telling the stories of student athletes who had suffered from sudden cardiac arrest on the playing field. The drama was already baked into the story. What do the Bee Gees, a perceptive cat, and a perceptive cat owner all have in common? Well, in 2012 in Orlando, Florida, they all played a role, along with a 911 dispatcher, first responders, and an automated external defibrillator, or AED, in saving Rick Chapp's life. But this new gig was with a company in the automotive industry, a company that collected competitive pricing data for auto dealerships. Not a lot of drama baked into that subject matter. So this gig would take some creativity on my part, but I was intrigued. Having worked in the automotive industry myself for 13 years, I wasn't witness to loads of creativity during that time. But this was one of the most creative ideas I had seen in a while, and from the automotive industry no less. I jumped at the chance to do this, put in an offer, and landed the job. The man behind this brilliant idea was David Swan, and the company behind the man was InteliChek. And this was the original seed that would eventually grow into the Multi-Point Inspection Podcast. We lost David this year, but InteliChek, infused with his passion and creativity, lives on.
He had a lighted pen, he said, he told me, and a pad of paper next to his bed. And because he would literally dream these things, and he would get up and he'd have to write them down, and then he'd go back to sleep and get up and write them down.
Yeah.
And that's why every morning he would call us. We'd have a meeting every morning with all these ideas. And that's probably how we found you. We probably first thing in the morning posted that job posting because he dreamt about it. Yeah, his mind never stopped. So my name is Melissa Marlatt, and I am the Client Operations Director. I've been with InteliChek for 15 years. I started off as a certified agent, worked my way up to handling the operations side of the business.
I'm Joe Gibson. I'm the Director of Sales and Marketing at InteliChek. Been with the company for close to 8 years now. Kind of done different things, worn different hats in the company. Something that we learned along the way working with David was keeping up with his creative vision and then trying to put it into action, which was what we did. And I think that that's how we grew into the people that we are, was by following David's lead, but then also helping to realize it, helping to put it into action, which is what Melissa does, what I do, what our team does. And that's where we are now. And David's creative spirit is sort of still going. There are still so many ideas that he had that we are trying to bring into existence. So it's just like a never-ending blast of energy that he's put out into the universe. And we are just doing our best to realize it. And I think that is, what's made us grow and made us into the leaders that we are in the business. And I think that we also are influenced by his creativity and, are able to add our own into it now and bring our own ideas. And again, like David always thought, the best idea rises to the top. And usually those ideas come from collaboration and from, good communication. And that is something that we really believe in and we're going to believe in going forward.
And it was that same creativity that not only sparked the idea of InteliChek over 26 years ago, but allowed the company to consistently innovate alongside the technology of the day.
So InteliChek was started by David Swan. It was founded in 1997. At that point, with technology and everything, it was collecting prices over the phone, which we still do. And then I believe they were just writing them down at that point. It got a little more sophisticated and Excel files were used. And then over time, we developed into online software. We just made our user experience that much better so that, depending on what your background is in the company. So we work with OEs and dealer groups where, they have different levels of permissions for the data that we collect. And we are able to sort the data, filter the data, basically to match anything that our clients are looking for. So, somebody who's a corporate level user would come on, they would be able to see the highest level, and then they would be able to drill down into their reports, see everything down to the dealer level. And then obviously we have dealers that would be accessing the reports as well. So, the system has really come a long way over 20 plus years. And now we have additional tools that are available. We have just integration with a lot of different companies, a lot of different vendors that dealers are using. So it has come a long way, and we're continuing to grow.
And just exactly what is InteliChek and what does it do?
We often say that InteliChek is competitive pricing analysis, but I think when you really get into it and you see what kind of data we're providing, it's broader than that. I would almost call it a fixed operations analysis software. InteliChek does focus on competitive pricing, where we're looking at an OE or a dealer or a dealer group's service pricing, and then comparing it to their local competitors and presenting the data to either the OE clients at a corporate level or breaking it down to a dealer level and showing those comparisons, highlighting profit gaps, showing where, they can be more competitive, where they do have favorable pricing, and then helping them promote that to their customers. But it's a little broader than that because we also bring into it a customer-centric point of view, which is used to evaluate service departments and competitors. So not only are we looking at pricing, we're looking at how a customer interacts with a service advisor. And so we do performance reports, phone etiquette reports. We're gathering things like days wait. We're looking at just the consistency of a service advisor. Are they quoting the right price? Are they greeting the customer with their name? So there's a lot to our data, and there's a lot that our clients use it for. They will use it to see how they fare versus their competition in terms of pricing and use it for pricing strategy. But they also use it for evaluating their own service departments. And we've had clients come back to us and say they love our reports because it's like getting a report card and seeing how they did. And then they're able to go in there and make adjustments to their strategies, to their service department's communications with the customers. So there's just a number of layers that our data be useful and benefit service departments and fixed operation departments.
So we offer our services all the way from an entire OE, where we will do the services for all of their dealers. We do dealer groups within those brands. We even do individual dealers. Individual dealers can go to our website and purchase our local market sweep. That's a monthly program. We could do a quarterly program. We can customize a program that fits their needs and what's going to benefit them. So you can reach out to us at 877-827-7273, extension 500, or you can go to our website at www.InteliChek.com. And you can reach us by email at beconfident@InteliChek.com. And so we gather that information we have multiple certified agents who call up dealerships and their competitors and obtain pricing on specific services as if they own the vehicle in need of having that service done. And then they get apples to apples price comparisons to give to the dealer so that they can see how their prices line up and compare to their competitors. We also provide recordings of our conversations with those stores, additional information such as brands and warranties provided, days wait. They ask all the appropriate questions to make sure that what they're getting is accurate information and it's exact.
There's a lot of talk these days about a dealership's culture, the perception of dealerships from consumers, and the need for transparency. And InteliChek has been ringing this bell from day one.
That is a huge part of what we do with OEs and dealerships and dealer groups, because there is that perception that you were talking about out there about dealerships and their service departments being more expensive than the aftermarket. And, particularly for out of warranty vehicles, that's going to be a huge factor when people are deciding where they're going to go for service. And we've done studies, recently to see what the actual customer perception was. And basically, they're seeing dealerships as being between 20 and 50% more expensive than the aftermarket. And that isn't true. I mean, it really largely isn't true. We've done enough studies to see that, dealership pricing is often between 0 and 20% more expensive than the aftermarket, but factor in what you're getting there. I mean, you're getting certified technicians who actually know the vehicle that you have. Compare that to an aftermarket where they have to know every vehicle out there. So obviously the depth of knowledge on a specific brand isn't going to be the same. It's not going to be the same quality. And then also there's OE parts. There's advantages to just the service experience, the waiting room, the dealership experience that adds value. So factor that into that price, that 0 to 20%. That to us is something that dealerships need to promote to their customers, that they have to get that message across, because the customers don't know that. They have a different perception. And so by evaluating your pricing, seeing where you actually fall versus the competition, you're able to do that. You have the data to then prove it to your customers. So that's a lot of what we help dealers do.
Yeah. Well, and what we've discovered is a lot of times you don't know what your customers are being told, not only at your store, but at the competition. The at your store is really important. I've had so many dealers call me up and say, that price is wrong that you got. Well, we called up and this is the price we got. And here's the recording to show that and what your service advisor is telling your customers. So yeah, a transparency in what we're finding is huge.
And Joe and Melissa say that if a dealership wants to provide transparency and education to the customer, they must know where they stand in the market. Being unaware simply isn't an option.
The market is changing, and if you're not paying attention to that, you don't know. You're in the dark. Your pricing is in the dark. And, there are certain service departments where they probably haven't changed their pricing in, months. And so that price could be much lower than your competition. And essentially you're leaving money on the table. So you need to be tracking that, and you need to be tracking it consistently over time so that you can see the up-to-date prices, because that's what your customer is going to be hearing. When they call up looking for service, they're getting quotes from your competition. You should know what those quotes are. I mean, even generally, like, you need to have a basic idea of what they're going to be telling them so that you can be competitive. And yes, you don't need to be the lowest price, because again, it's not always about pricing. It is about the value, the added value of a dealership. So if you can factor that into your messaging to your customer, I think it can be very, very, very effective in proving to them that it is worth going to the dealership outside of warranty. And we know that people are keeping cars much longer today than they were in the past. So, people might be keeping their cars for up to 14 years, if not longer, and they need that maintenance. They need to get repairs. And so, obviously transparency is great for people that are budget conscious. They can get an idea, they can plan ahead, but also they can see, where is the value? Where do I really want to take my car, and who do I trust? And I think a lot of people, the feedback we get is, yes, they do see added value to the dealership, but unless that price is comparable, not necessarily the lowest, they are going to look elsewhere.
And we looked at a report yesterday where the dealer was $40 lower than the average on a synthetic oil and filter change. And if he doesn't know that, he doesn't know that he could raise that price even $20 and still be under the local competition and make more money. He's leaving money on the table there. And we're kind of giving you the confidence, right, to know what's out there, to know what your customers are being told when they call around, and the confidence to be able to educate your customers to why they should come to you. If you don't know what they're being told of the competition and what the prices are, and if you're better priced and if you're not better priced, you don't have that confidence to educate them when they call up.
I think some dealers are concerned that they're not going to be competitive. Like I said, by and large, they are, and it can actually be surprising for them to see that. It's a little like, a doctor's visit where you're afraid of what the truth might be. But it's always, you're better off. You're better off afterwards. You're going to be a healthier person having gone there because you're going to make decisions going forward that are only going to benefit you. If you do have a service that is completely out of whack with the rest of your competition, you can address that. Again, you don't have to drop it down to the lowest price, but you can make an informed decision. That's the power of data. That's plain and simple. That's the power of data. And that's what you need to have. You need to have it be accurate for one and up to date. And so, continually checking these things. So that is what InteliChek does. InteliChek, we recommend tracking prices at least quarterly, if not monthly. That is obviously a better look. And with certain services, Melissa, you can speak to this, like oil changes, they change drastically, and it's not, the days of just like $49.99. That's it. It's not like that anymore.
And if you're able to say to your customer, I know you're probably calling around for prices, and you probably called down the street and got a price for this much less. How much confidence are you giving there? I already know what you're getting at these other stores, but here's why you need to come to us versus them. They're quoting you a part that's much cheaper and isn't going to last as long and doesn't come with that long of a warranty. And here's what we're offering you. It's a whole education.
And as Joe and Melissa referenced earlier, InteliChek's data analysis goes much deeper than just price comparisons.
The customer experience is a big thing, and InteliChek also offers that, right? We do jobs where we call up and rank your service advisors based on your customer service expectations. That is big for retaining customers. And it's amazing to me when we have done those types of jobs, how many of the service advisors failed at the brand's expectations of how to handle phone calls. I've heard so many calls where they don't even say, hey, can I make you an appointment? They just answer the questions and hang up with the customer, and they don't even try to get them to stay, let alone educate them on why they should come to that dealer.
Even our basic pricing studies, we can do that. We are basically collecting the data that from that customer's point of view. So you can see exactly what that customer has experienced, what your customer would be experienced from calling you up. And what we would be evaluating there is, really the options are endless there. Like we said, if you want to be getting across the value, we could be checking, are they quoting OEM parts? Are they remembering to actually mention that? And maybe the customer doesn't even know what that means. So do you take the time to educate them on why that's a benefit? And that can be something that we evaluate. And then you can see, where there are maybe issues in that communication, and then make the necessary choices of what you're going to train your advisors on, or where you're going to address those things, because it really does matter. In some cases, that is the first point of contact, and that first impressions are everything. So if you're losing people there and you don't know it, that's not a good thing. So
did you know that when your customer called up, they had to call 3 times before they were able to speak to anybody? Did you know that they were transferred to 5 different people before they were able to get their questions answered? That's big, because I won't call back 3 times if I'm calling a business. I won't do it. I call once at the most. I'm bad at that. So you need to be aware.
Is somebody being quoted a labor time being transferred over to a parts department that never picks up their phone, and you're getting an incomplete quote? Again, that is the end of the line for that customer, essentially. So communication between departments is extremely important. So is there a place where that is being dropped, where the ball is being dropped there between different departments? And shouldn't each department at least be aware of what the other one is saying so that there's a consistency in what is being presented to a customer?
And then there's the issue of days wait.
Days wait is another, how many days is it going to take to get in for that appointment? What's your customer being told? I have one OE where it's a 27-day wait to get into some of their dealerships. And the general manager at that dealership wasn't even aware that the service department was that far behind. That's a big thing to know what your customers are being quoted and how soon they can get in, because they can get in down the road tomorrow. They can walk in to the oil change place next block over and get an oil change tomorrow, where they're waiting 27 days to get into your dealership.
But the different parts of your business need to be aware of these things. Like you were saying, Melissa, if the general manager doesn't know that, then necessary steps to help that, alleviate that stress, aren't being taken because the decision makers aren't aware of it. And so you need to have an evaluation done to be aware of all those different parts of your business where, again, the ball is being dropped, or where maybe there's a bottlenecking that can be helped. I think that identifying specific issues in your operation is so important, because you might be throwing money at different parts of your operation and they might be totally fine. So in a sense, you're kind of throwing money into something that isn't correcting the actual issue. So if you do an evaluation, you see where that bottleneck is happening, and then you're able to actually use your resources in an effective way. You're able to, if you do need to hire a new technician and if you do need to just make adjustments to pricing, at least you know that you can do that. You might not be able to fix it in the way that you want to fix it right away, but if you're in the dark, you could just be throwing money and resources, hoping that it's going to make things better. But, really, unless you're identifying those problems, it might just continue the way it is. It might get worse than what it is. So that's where I think, evaluations, fixed ops analysis, it's just the power of knowledge about either your own service operation or your competitors. Because again, what are your customers getting when they go to the aftermarket? Is there something that you need to be aware of that they're offering, that they're saying to their customers that is changing where they go, or convincing them that they are getting better value elsewhere?
Melissa and Joe talk about 6,907 jelly beans, the future of InteliChek, and carrying out David Swan's vision. After a word from our sponsor. Perception is not always reality.
And, there's this perception that the dealerships are more expensive for everything. And InteliChek kind of confirms that that's not the case.
InteliChek helps dealerships become aware of where their prices stand in regard to their competitors.
And InteliChek does a good job of giving us that pricing data to confirm that we're in the market.
And this allows dealerships to make their customers aware of their competitive pricing.
I placed 2 placards in the business center so they could see that while they're over there working on computers. I also placed it in our coffee area. We have a glass wall there, so when they walk in, as they're putting their creamer and sugar in their coffee, they're going to look up and see the pricing for our pricing as well as our competitors.
Introducing InteliShare. InteliShare contains all of InteliChek's promotional tools that you can use to promote your favorable prices, including Intella Ads, the printable flyers that you can show off in easel displays, Intella Media for your digital media boards, and Intella Widgets, so you can show off price comparisons on your website and even let your customers schedule from the widget.
Just having access to that data that they're able to provide gives us a good plan of how we're going to proceed.
Call 877-827-7273 or go to InteliChek.com to find out more about how the InteliShare series can help you grow your business. David Swan was famous for telling a story about jelly beans that would eventually become InteliChek's mantra.
So he used to always tell the story about 6,907 jelly beans, which there was 6,907 jelly beans in a jar. And they asked, so many people to guess how many jelly beans were in there. No one got the exact number. But when you averaged out all of the answers, you got very close within a 10% range of the number of jelly beans that were in the jar, which was Dave's way of saying, everybody's input put together into a situation made everything that much better, was the correct answer. It wasn't just one person's thought and one person's idea. It was everybody's collaboration that made things grow and made things better. So we use that all the time. But his relationships really showed too. As a business, as his employee over the years, he kept those relationships. Just like Joe said, with the clients, he kept it with his employees. He always treated his employees well. Most of us have long-term relationships in this company, me being 15, Joe being, I think, 8. We have Katrina, who's been here for 11, I think maybe 12 years. That shows that in this day and age, people don't stay in a company that long. The turnover is always great. They're always going on to bigger and better things. But when someone came into InteliChek, we just stayed and that was because of David and how well he treated his people.
And I think also the way that he recognized people's strengths and then allowed them to grow and to have the opportunity to, really do what we do best. And I mean, even speaking from my own experience with David, when he brought me on board, he was open to my ideas. And if I thought I could help in a certain area, he was, always open to that and allowed us to sort of grow. I think he really encouraged that.
And I think that shows now that he's gone, the team that he left behind, the team that he trained and the team that he mentored, that it's taking over this company. Joe and I were just in a meeting yesterday with the whole team at InteliChek, and we came out of that with just, wow, the excitement, the passion everybody still has for InteliChek. And we got that from David. The company will continue and be even probably more prosperous because we all have a passion because Dave installed that in us.
Yeah, I think that it's been a process where we're able to flourish because, David has allowed so many of us to kind of come up and then collaborate. So, it's greater than the sum of its parts. And I think that, as Melissa said, the future is bright for us right now. I think that we're just finding new ways to collaborate, new ways to partner with other businesses as well. So, the future is very bright, and we're really seeing that right now. And I think David would be very proud because, that was his vision, and he was a visionary person. And, he always saw just, he was always looking toward the future and how InteliChek could grow and all the different ways that we can just have new technology, new services, new ways of presenting data, more effective ways of presenting data. Because, like I said, coming from just Excel files and just here's some raw data, which, if you want raw data, there's nothing wrong with that. But, we're developing ways to make it easier for people to understand what sort of information is important and highlighting that.
David Swan was an amazing businessman, and he had such passion for InteliChek and passion for the industry. And we used to laugh at how his mind worked because his ideas, I think he slept and his mind just kept going. And every morning he'd call with a new idea of how to, reinvent the wheel basically and perfect the industry and perfect the business and grow the business and just make a change. And he has really evolved a lot of things in InteliChek and has grown it. And so we're hoping to continue that path for him.
And David also was somebody who really valued relationships in the industry. And I think for anybody that came across David, who knew David, who worked with David, they saw that David always had time to just talk on a personal level. And that was something that, working side by side with him for so many years, I mean, I would call David a mentor for me. I learned so much about not only what we do in the industry, but just how to treat people in a business and just a life, relationship that we have with people. And so that was something that I think when people think about David, that might be one of the first things that they think of. That, and obviously his amazing creativity and collaborative spirit. I think David always, wanted to hear from everyone that he came across, all the ideas, because he knew that the best idea would rise to the top. We're excited about where we're headed and, the fact that we are expanding our business, bringing on new clients recently, trying to find different ways that we can do studies, expanding the types of studies that we're doing for OE clients, and in developing new tools to make the whole process of uncovering this information better for our end user, and also giving them better tools to communicate to their customers. So that is something that we're really excited about, and there's a lot coming that way. We're really excited about where the company is headed. But yeah, I think a lot of people think InteliChek, they think David Swan, and that is the association for many years, and that is something that we want to continue. We want to continue the spirit and the vision that he had, and then take it to a new level, which I think is where we're headed. And Melissa and myself, we are taking on. Obviously no one can be David Swan, but we're trying to fill the shoes.
We will always be here to make him proud. That's our goal. We know he's watching over us. We know he's guiding us.
I'd like to thank Melissa Marlatt and Joe Gibson for an amazing interview. You can find the Multi-Point Inspection Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Amazon, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And be sure to subscribe and give us a 5-star rating. It helps with the algorithm thingy. Executive producers for the Multi-Point Inspection Podcast are Melissa Marlatt and Joe Gibson. It is written, produced, and narrated by me, Brandon Barnett. This episode's featured music is Here She Comes by Reveille. InteliChek. Know your competition.